Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. We just passed 230 subs. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I hope I can continue to make great content you guys will enjoy in the future. Now, the New Mexico Bowl is between the SMU Mustangs and the BYU Cougars. Who do I think is going to win this bowl game? Let's break it down. Now, SMU is 7-5 and 5-3 this season in the American Conference, and Rhett Lashlee's done a really good job in his first season at head coach. He's had SMU play pretty well, and they've had a pretty good season. And in week 1, they won at North Texas 48-10. That was a great win. Then they beat Lamar 45-16. Then they lost at Maryland 34-27. That was a tough loss. Then they lost to TCU 42-34. So they only lost to a team in the college football playoff by 8 points. Then they lost at UCF 41-19. That wasn't a very good game for SMU. Then they beat Navy 40-34. Then they lost to Cincinnati at home 29-27. That was a tough loss. Then they beat Tulsa on the road 45-34. Then they beat Houston in an offensive explosion 77-63. Then they won at South Florida 41-23. Then they lost at Tulane 59-24. And then they beat Memphis in the last game of the regular season 34-31. So they've been up and down all season, but SMU overall has played pretty well. Now, quarterback Tanner Mordecai is a big reason why. He's 261 of 406 for 3,306 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. He's the transfer quarterback from Oklahoma. He's had a fantastic season for SMU. In the air raid offense that the Mustangs run, he has definitely delivered. He's played well all season at quarterback, and he is definitely a reason why SMU's won a lot of games this year. Running back Tyler Levine has 119 attempts for 551 yards and 9 touchdowns. Solid running back, but SMU, their focal point is not the run game. And wide receiver Jordan Curley will be the top wide receiver for SMU in this game with 31 receptions for 538 yards and 5 touchdowns because their top wide receiver, Rashee Rice, he is not going to be playing in this bowl game due to injury. That really hurts SMU because he is a fantastic player. I think SMU will still play pretty well on offense even without him. And on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Jimmy Phillips Jr. has 76 total tackles, 45 solo tackles, and a sack. And safety Nick Roberts has 62 total tackles, 46 solo tackles, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. And SMU this season, their defense has really struggled in a lot of games to stop the other team's offense. They've given up a lot of points. I think they have some solid players on defense, but that has not been their strong point. SMU's offense is definitely better than their defense. Now, on the BYU side, they are 7-5 this season as an independent. And Kalani Sitake's done a great job at BYU over his tenure, but they've really struggled a little bit this season. They've taken a step back from what they've been the last couple of years, but they still haven't had a bad season. And in week 1, they won at South Florida 50-21. That was a good win. Then they beat Baylor in overtime at home 26-20. That was a good win. Then they lost at Oregon 41-20. Tough loss there. Then they bounced back and beat Wyoming 38-24. They beat Utah State 38-26. But then they lost to Notre Dame on a neutral field 28-20. Then they lost to Arkansas at home 52-35. Then they lost at Liberty 41-14. That was their worst performance of the season. Then they lost to East Carolina at home 27-24. But since then, BYU won their last 3 games to achieve bowl eligibility. They won at Boise State 31-28. That was a great win. Then they beat Utah Tech 52-26. And then in the final game of the regular season, they won at Stanford 35-26. And that was a good result. But unfortunately, in that game, their quarterback, Jaron Hall, he got hurt. He hurt his ankle, and he might not be playing in this bowl game. That's why I have it as an injury to be determined on the opt-outs list because we do not know for sure if he's not going to play. He could play, but the rumors are that he will not play in this bowl game. If Jaron Hall can't play, that would really hurt BYU because their backup quarterback, Jacob Conover, he's in the transfer portal. And then their third-string quarterback, Cade Finnegan, he hasn't played in a couple years. So it's going to be very tough for BYU if they have to have Cade Finnegan play at quarterback. They would really benefit from having Jaron Hall, even if he's not at 100%. To play in this bowl game, but we're just not sure yet if he's going to play or not. Running back Christopher Brooks has 111 attempts for 729 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's a solid running back, and he's had a pretty good season, but he's definitely going to have to step up in this bowl game if Jaron Hall is not playing. And wide receiver Puka Nacua has 48 receptions for 625 yards and 5 touchdowns. BYU has a solid offense. They have good players, but their offense will definitely be limited without Jaron Hall because of his dual threat ability. Makes it very tough on defenses to stop him. And on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Ben Bywaters, 87 total tackles, 27 solo tackles, 2 interceptions and a sack. And defensive back Micah Harper's 58 total tackles, 23 solo tackles, and 2 forced fumbles. And BYU's defense has played pretty well at times this season. They've had a few games where their defense really struggled, but overall their defense is pretty good. And on offense, again, BYU has a really good offense, but without Jaron Hall, I would say BYU's defense is better than their offense. So who do I think is going to win the New Mexico Bowl? This game is tough because both teams are not going to be at full strength. SMU, their top wide receiver, Rashee Rice, again, is not playing in this bowl game due to injury, and that's tough because SMU really relies on their offense to win games, and I think that will hurt SMU's offense somewhat without him. But BYU's star quarterback, Jaren Hall, again, more than likely will not be playing in this bowl game. He has not been completely ruled out, but even if he does play, he more than likely will not be 100%, and that will really be tough for BYU because of the fact his dual threat ability helps BYU's offense roll because he can run, he can throw, and it makes it tough on defenses to stop him. If you have the third string quarterback, Cade Finnegan, and BYU's offense will be much more one-dimensional, short passes and run game, it will be a lot easier for SMU's defense to stop BYU, even though SMU's defense is not very good. And that's the key for Jaren Hall playing for BYU because SMU does not have a very good defense. And if BYU has their quarterback, then it's going to help BYU win this game because SMU really struggles on defense. But if BYU does not have Jaren Hall, SMU might be able to stop a third-string quarterback better, and they'll be able to make up for the fact that their defense is not very good. And SMU's offense, even though they have Rashee Rice out, that's only a wide receiver. It's a lot harder to win without your star quarterback than it is one receiver. So I think that's going to benefit SMU as well. And I think BYU's defense will play well. They will play inspired, and they will do everything they can to stop SMU. But I think SMU is going to beat BYU 31-28 in the New Mexico Bowl. I think BYU can win this game. If Jaren Hall was playing, it would make it a lot easier to say that BYU could win this game. But it's going to be a lot tougher not knowing that he's going to be able to play or not, and especially the fact that even if he does play, he might not be 100%. I just think that's going to really hurt BYU. They have a couple other players in the transfer portal as well on defense, so it's going to be very tough for BYU. They have more losses than SMU does, and I think SMU's defense will be able to benefit from BYU not having Jaren Hall in the game if he doesn't play, and I think SMU's offense will be able to play well even without Rashee Rice for the most part, and even though I think BYU's defense will play well in this game, and I think Kalani Sitake is a great coach. I think Rhett Lashlee's team is going to be able to score enough points on offense to get this win. And I think SMU's defense is going to be able to stop BYU just enough with a third-string quarterback. And I think SMU is going to beat BYU in the New Mexico Bowl 31-28. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think SMU or BYU will win the New Mexico Bowl and why. And I will see you next time.